I was looking at your Instagram trying to kind of like formulate a sentence to describe you, and I feel like it just wasn't fitting. Like I want you to say sort of what you're passionate about and what you do and how you use your platforms to make that happen.
Okay. Okay. My name is Margo Renate. I am an artist, a photographer, a writer, and a facilitator. And I help women, I facilitate safe space for women to do their own self-healing work with me as a witness. Co-creating experiences where I can guide my clients back to their bodies, back to their sensuality, their pleasure, their sexualities, their identity, and their creative and artistic expression. My purpose, or like the thesis of my work, is sexual liberation for women, and I think also just liberation on like a global scale. Ideally, like that ripples out. I work more specifically with women, but I do see that possibly changing in the future. For right now,
that's interesting.
Yeah, I'm like, I still have some healing to do around men before I work with them in that way. But yeah, women and non-binary people are like my focus area. And yeah, I mean, it's always changing. My work is always changing. I started as a commercial photographer. I was shooting swimwear and yoga wear brands and doing a lot of stuff with models and influencers. And then I always had these clients that would come in who were just regular people that wanted an experience of being photographed by a woman in a safe place, typically nude. A lot of my work is nude. And I realized that there was like a lot happening there in those sessions with these clients that was really deep, and that was the work that was making me come alive. So I left the whole commercial work thing behind me, and now I really focus on using photography as like a healing modality.
That's so cool. Yeah. And I think it's so needed as well. Like, I don't know, you see a lot of people, I think you talked about this on your Instagram the other day, that you see a lot of people that describe themselves as healers in the space, and maybe they're like doing things that aren't necessarily like positive. And everything that I've seen from you and people that you post about are so positive and cool. And like your Joshua Tree retreat, I almost bought a ticket.
Come to
go.
the next one.
To the next one. I really want to, because I love that type of work. I love like breath work and healing spaces and being around other women. So I definitely thought about it.
Yeah.
But I wanted to really talk to you today about an Instagram reel that you posted. Okay. So it's Pride Month, obviously. We're all celebrating because queer people are beautiful.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, like in that Instagram reel, you said that queer love saved your life. So I'm curious if you want to tell us a story or kind of your start into your queerness and how that's evolved over time.
Ooh, yeah. It's been, my journey with my queer identity has been a pretty easy one, I think, than what a lot of people tend to experience. And I think a lot of that comes from the privilege I was born into. Like I have like societal standards of beauty. I'm white, like I'm straight presenting, you know, I have these things that make me very digestible as a queer person. So for me, that journey was very easy. I also grew up in a really accepting household, a very like liberal household that was just like, I didn't have to deal with any like religious stuff or like my parents not being accepting or whatever. And it was something that I came into slowly over time. Like when I was younger, I always was curious, but I wasn't like, it was never something that I was dealing with like guilt or shame about coming out or like really worried about my identity. I sometimes like to say, I feel like I was born with like a sprinkle of sexual liberation. Like I feel like that's just ingrained in me, and I've been able to lead this really open, free life because of that. And some of it is because of my socialization. Some of it is because of the household I grew up in. Growing up in Costa Rica also was like just a very simple, free lifestyle. But yeah, I remember I left to college. So in high school, like identified as straight, always was kind of curious and like was curious about sexuality and always had like a comfort in my body. And then I went to college in Boston. I like moved away from my small hometown, and I was like, as soon as I was in the US, I felt like, okay, I can be whoever I want to be now. And I never felt like I wasn't myself, but I just felt like I can really like just see what the fuck comes up. Like I can just show up in this space and like be brand new. I mean, I think most kids feel that way if they like move away from their hometown and go to college somewhere. But for me, it was like going to a whole new country, like going really far away from home. And yeah, I had a really amazing group of friends, and I remember coming to them and being like, I think I might be bisexual. I think I'm interested in women. And all of them were like, you should explore that and see what happens. And that kind of began a journey of like having my first sexual experiences with women, which were very fulfilling and pleasureful. And just like, I was like, whoa.
And different.
So different.
Different. Like, I mean, I had that experience of sort of like wanting to see what that was like for a long time and not allowing myself to. And then finally experiencing it and being like, wait, this is so different and like so good in so many ways. And not even just like from the act itself, but there's a different emotional connection with women.
What I like to say when it comes to loving women is for me, because people are always like, oh, do you like men or women more or whatever? Like people always want to make it this thing. And I'm like, I'm attracted to all genders. It's an energy thing for me. And I don't believe in the gender binary. But like being with a woman or someone who has been socialized as a woman versus being with a man, we automatically have this level of intimacy and understanding because of the shared experience of being a woman, which is like, there's so much we deal with, like in this patriarchal, heteronormative society. And when two women come together in an intimate space, especially if there's sex and romance involved, with that shared understanding, it's like the level of seenness that I feel when I'm with a woman is like, I don't know if I could ever, I don't believe I could ever get that from being with a man, because they just simply do not know what it's like to exist in this world as a woman.
Yeah. It's so interesting that you say that, because I very much felt that way when I was with my ex-husband. Like navigating being ethically non-monogamous and experiencing being with women. I just came out, I had my first experiences like going on dates with women, and that was a whole experience in itself, like a very different kind of journey. And then to add the sex to it was like a whole other eye-opening experience. And at the time I was with somebody who wasn't considerate, didn't understand women's struggles, didn't try to understand women's struggles.
Didn't try.
Very blatantly would put women down. And so to be with women on the opposite side of that is like, whoa, this is so fulfilling and like wholesome in some ways.
Yeah.
And I had never been seen like that. And I'm sure you felt the same way.
Yeah. And a lot of, I talk about this quite a bit, but with my work, I started taking photos as like a 20-year-old. So I was like a college sophomore or junior. I like bought my first camera with my bottle service money, and like I set up like a little studio in my bedroom at BU, and my friends would come over and I would photograph them naked, and like it was just very like, it was very, very intimate, very vulnerable, and it wasn't sexual, but it was nude and really raw. And I lost my train of thought. Being seen. Oh yeah, and as I was starting to get into that with photography, I also was photographing myself a lot, and I was photographing myself a lot nude. I still do that quite a bit, but I was like really doing it a lot when I was first starting out, because I didn't have that many people to photograph besides myself. So I would like set up my little tripod and like, do my thing. And yeah, with my photography, like a big part of it is being seen, like not only seeing myself and having like my emotions be seen, but giving a chance for my clients' emotions to be seen and for what they're working through to be seen, and just for them to be able to see themselves. And I've just had such a desire to be seen and known my whole life, like that. Like liberation and freedom is a big like pillar in my life, and then the desire to be seen and understood and like live a shared experience through connection with people and creating art with people is another one. And queer love in particular has given me that seenness that I've desired, like that want to be seen and witnessed and understood and like be in this shared thing, because I'm like, another woman understands what it's like to, especially another queer woman, like put the two of us together and I'm like, okay, this is really a fucking mirror. Like, this is really someone who gets it and can understand me and understand all levels of my pain and the things I've been through and the suffering. And I just think with men, there's a certain level that it's like, there just cannot be equal understanding. That doesn't mean that I don't like them as partners. It doesn't mean I don't love men. Unfortunately, if I could choose to not.
I was just talking to my friend yesterday. She was saying that her gay male friend is like, oh, I like men. It's so annoying. And I'm like, I think most people feel that way.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think, I mean, queer love has just given me so much as an artist and as a partner and just as like a way to be seen and understood in the world and to see and understand others as well.
Yeah. I very deeply relate to that because some of my best work when I started freelance writing came from a woman that I dated in particular who like changed, like she just changed my life, like in every single way. And we're still very close. Like she is one of my soulmates, I like firmly believe. Yeah. But it really inspired me in my work as well. And I wasn't ever in a position before to understand what that's like with men. Like I was never like, oh, you're like making me write poetry or you like that was just not it for me. And queer love completely changed that. And I think especially during Pride Month, it's important to acknowledge like queer love is special and different and not everyone understands it. And then there's people who are newly coming out who I think really need to see the kind of content you've been putting out.
Thank you. Yeah, I think part of also what I want to do, I guess, with some of the stuff I've been creating or talking about or writing about is that queer love can look so many different ways and you really get to decide. Like you really get to customize your life and like decide what it looks like. And there isn't just like one way that it needs to look or one way that it needs to feel. And especially like being polyamorous or practicing ethical non-monogamy, it's like relationships can look so many different ways. And what I have found in other queer people, even in other queer people who aren't polyamorous or practicing ethical non-monogamy, but are monogamous people, the way that we love is so much more free and understanding and communicative. I mean, have you been watching The Queer Ultimatum on Netflix?
Yeah, I just finished it.
Okay, I have not seen it, but I'm like, I should have watched it for this podcast, honestly, so we could talk about it. But everyone keeps telling me like, you need to watch it, and that like the level of communication and like the way that love is represented and like queer love is represented is just like really eye-opening to so many people. And I mean, I haven't seen it, but I assume that what people are telling me is right.
Yeah, it is. And I think I just like pitched an idea for this the other day about writing an article on what the show represents as far as stereotypes go and how those are actualized in the show, but also the way that they communicate and the differences that come out of it at the end. Because I think ultimately like the goal is for them to like decide if they want to be with their partners or be with someone else. Yeah. And throughout the show, there's like multiple variations of a queer person and what a queer person looks like. And I will say one of the things I didn't like about it is that they don't give pronouns. So like the producers never put the pronouns in the show, and there were multiple people in the show who identify as non-binary. Okay. And then we're like just not akin to that information. So I just thought that was weird. I will say that's just the one thing I didn't like. Yeah. And then one person on the show identified as their name and not as a pronoun necessarily. Their pronoun is their name. Okay. So, but other than that, I felt like it did a good job of kind of representing different queer people and what that love looks like. Yeah. And also it's just like a little bit of drama, which is fun.
Nothing like a little bit of gay drama. Yeah. We love it. We live for it.
Well, like TikTok, there's always a little bit, you know?
Yeah, there has to be.
It's like when you date your ex's ex. Yeah. Like there's always a little bit of that. Even in New York, like the queer community here is small. And you would not think it, but it is.
One of my clients was dating my ex-girlfriend's ex-girlfriend. And I was like, that would happen here. I had to like, I'm like, okay, they're not seeing each other anymore. Yeah. And it's all good. But it was just like, I was like, of course, like this would happen. I mean, in LA, it's very similar. It's just like, you're 1 degree of separation from like anyone.
Everyone in the queer community, essentially.
Yeah. We basically are just one giant orgy, like incestual orgy.
Kind of like that, you know?
I know. I'm not mad about it.
So I'm curious, like when it comes to E&M, what does that look like for you? Because for everyone, it's so different. Like for myself, it's different. And I'm always curious to talk to other polyamorous people because I don't meet a lot of polyamorous people who are like far along in their journey.
Yeah.
They're like either just starting or they're like toying with the idea of, am I polyamorous?
Yeah. Wow. Well, a little bit of background, I guess, of like how I got to this point. So I was in a lot of monogamous relationships with men throughout my life. And in college, I had like 2 or 3 in a row where, and this was at the same time that I was like really starting to experiment with my sexuality, stepping into my bi identity at the time. And I kept getting into these monogamous relationships with these men, and I would be like, I am in this place where I'm exploring my sexuality, and I'm exploring being with women, and that's really important to me, and that's something that I really want and desire. And I'd be like, can we have threesomes, or like, can I sleep with women outside of the relationship? And they'd, at first be like, oh yeah, that's so hot or whatever. And then it would actually happen, and they'd be like crying in the corner, which is totally fair. Like, those are valid feelings, but I was like in this cycle of doing this with men and being like, and then being like, can we have an open relationship? And these men that I was with were like, no, we cannot have that. Or they'd end up saying yes, because I'd be like, okay, either we're open or we're not going to be together, like that kind of thing, which was, I was young and didn't know how to communicate very well. So I was sort of in that cycle, and then I ended things with a boyfriend at the time, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go into the dating scene again, and I'm going to present as ethically non-monogamous. Like, I'm going to put it in my dating app. I was only on dating apps for women up until like literally a year ago. So I would meet men like naturally, but women I would meet on apps, because it is hard to meet queer women in the wild and like actually like making a move and all that.
And also the presenting as more femme, people assume that we're straight.
Yeah.
So
Hate that. I have like a giant tote bag that says queer on it, because I'm like,
please
hit on me. Like, I want to get like a rainbow phone case. I'm like, I just want like a rainbow tattooed on my forehead sometimes. I'm like, please know that I'm queer. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to start presenting this way. And like on my dating apps, I'm going to like put it on there. And when I meet people, I'm going to say like, hey, I practice ethical non-monogamy, or like I'm non-monogamous, whatever. And I started dating like that. And it was hard, because this was in 2018, I want to say. Wow, I'm like 5 years in. Fuck yeah. Okay, yeah. So
same
this
as me, actually.
Yeah, okay,
I came out in 2017, and I started being E&M in 2018.
Pretty much the same for me. Like in college, so like I got to BU in 2013, and then finished in 2017. And I was having sexual experiences with women, but I wasn't fully like, I'm bi and like dating women or anything like that. But I was like kissing girls at bars, or like going home with girls, or I had like a few girls that I would like see regularly, but like we each had boyfriends kind of thing. And it wasn't like, it wasn't super queer. It was just like experimenting. And then when I moved to California in 2017, 2018, I had my first girlfriend. And yeah, so yeah, it was just, it's interesting how that like coincides. But so 5 years ago, people weren't really like the E&M and like polyamory thing, like was not what it is now.
No,
like,
and TikTok didn't exist. So there wasn't like a way to access that information. Yeah. Like I remember, I don't know if you know what Skirt Club is, but it is, so it's essentially a party that you can go to. It's all women, and it's usually people who are kind of bi-curious or maybe bisexual, but with men, and their partners have allowed them to go to this party to like feel sexually liberated and kind of experiment. And that I was like doing research on this because it was the only thing I had found where it was really a community of people that were exploring
like-minded
like
stuff,
being open or ethically non-monogamous. But like TikTok didn't exist, so we didn't have, I don't know, like
that's really cool. I've never heard
it still
of anything
exists.
Like that.
I haven't been, but yeah, I've heard good things about it from other people.
I love that. That's really beautiful. So I started presenting that way. I started dating that way. And then I met my now ex-husband, and it all happened very quickly. Like, so I was already identifying as like ethically non-monogamous. I met him. I told him that immediately. We got married 2 months after knowing each other. I was 23 and young, dumb, and in love.
23.
Were you 23?
Yeah,
wow,
so
we like
weird.
are
That's
serious
first.
mirrors. Yeah. I was just in a place, and I was in the wrong place at the right time, I guess you could say. And he mirrored that to me. He was like, oh yeah, I practice the same thing. I'm down to like have this open style of relating. And we got together and we were together for almost 3 years. And so I had been like dating ethically non-monogamous, but I wasn't like, I didn't identify as polyamorous. I didn't have like multiple partners. I met him. We had we met and we got married, and then COVID happened pretty quickly after. So our relationship container was pretty closed because we were trying to be safe, COVID and all that. And then as COVID started to chill out a little bit more, we opened up the relationship, and I had two. I'm like, how much do we want to go into this? I had two. We would play a lot. We would play a lot in groups. My mom's definitely going to listen to this. Sorry, Mom. We would play a lot with like other couples, or like bringing a third person in and like having fun nights or whatever. And then at a certain point, I did have a girlfriend, like completely outside of the marriage. And then we like kind of had another girlfriend together towards the end of the relationship. And when I left him, a lot of people in my life were like, oh yeah, of course it didn't work out because you guys had an open relationship. And so when I had the first girlfriend, started dating, Claire is her name. She passed away in August, so holding her. But August of last year? No, 2 years ago. 2021. Yeah. So that was like, I mean, the story is like, that's like a whole other podcast episode of like the story of my marriage and like all that craziness. Once the divorce papers are signed, I'll be able to talk more about it.
Yeah.
I'm like waiting on that still.
I'll be holding out for that conversation.
Yeah, we'll do that properly. But when I met her and started seeing her, I was like, okay, this isn't ethical non-monogamy anymore. Like, this is polyamory. Like, I'm falling in love with this person and I want to have a relationship with them outside of our marriage. And he was supportive and fine with it. It didn't really come between us all that much. Of course, it was like a new territory to navigate, but again, like queer love saving my life, like having these other relationships with women while I was in a very abusive and toxic marriage helped me come to the surface and realize like, oh wait, love actually looks a lot different than what I've been experiencing. Like, it doesn't need to hurt so bad, and I don't need to put up with this shit. So that's like another piece of queer love saving my life.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that like gets me because I so relate to that on a deep level. Yeah.
It was just like, I mean, those women coming in during that time, like the two in particular, and just showing me like reminding me what healthy love, the second one wasn't quite as healthy, but still reminding me what love could look like and how different it could be, particularly with Claire. It was so safe and so intimate and so vulnerable and so true. And then I would go home and be in this like fucking nightmare, So it just like really,
I mean, in a sense,
me.
It probably escalated things for you to leave.
Yes. And so people were like, oh, well, of course it didn't work out. You guys were polyamorous. You guys were open. And what I like to say is that polyamory isn't the reason why things didn't work out, but it is part of the reason why I left.
I can see that.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, like it's not like the sole reason. It's not like you were upset if he was with somebody or he was upset at you for being with anybody, but it certainly showed you what you were missing in your relationship in a healthy capacity.
Yeah, it showed me the light.
I mean, women have a way of doing that.
Yeah. And so then I left him, and that was in the end of September of 2021. So we're almost at 2 years now. Yay. Very exciting.
Yay.
And since then I've been on this like single polyamorous vibe, which has been a totally new experience for me. And I think is quite rare. I haven't met many other single polyamorous women in particular. I find that most polyamorous women or people that I meet are partnered in a more like hierarchical structure. Yeah. And I mean, that's what I did for almost 3 years. So to be living this life single has been what has it been? It has been intoxicating in a really good way and sometimes in a really bad way. It's really challenged me to see how much I can love myself and trust myself and how much I like know who the fuck I am, orienting myself in the world, following my own internal compass, and just getting to meet and date so many amazing people and really getting to choose what my relationships look like and who gets to be a part of it and who doesn't, and having like no one but myself to guide me into everything and out of everything. And yeah, so I mean, to answer your question in short form, polyamory has looked, and practicing ethical non-monogamy has looked different for me at different stages in my life based on before I got married, while I was married, and now after. And at this stage, it's really like I am my own primary partner, which I've never done before. And that can be really hard, especially because I do desire partnership and love and to be seen and to be witnessed, right? Yeah. That's like, it all, you know, comes together. But I think it's exactly, especially like in this stage of my life, it's what I need. And it's allowing me a lot of time to try on a lot of different people. Yeah. And a lot of different places and a lot of different dynamics. Like I've been with a main partner and had a third, like had a girlfriend enter the relationship. And I've also been the girlfriend in other people's relationships. So I've done a lot of like unicorn life, which has been fun, but it's not as fulfilling as it used to be for me. Like I feel like I'm at a point now where I'm like, okay. And something that's really important for me in where I'm at with polyamory is like I am looking to build long-term relationships, even if the relationships aren't always romantic. So like if a partner comes into my life, I'm like, hey, I'm looking to build like lifelong lasting connections. It doesn't mean that we're going to get married. It might even mean that we're only in a romantic or sexual dynamic for 6 months, but then we're friends forever. But like I am really not in a place where I'm like, cool, let's like have a crazy night of sex or whatever, and then I'll never talk to you again. It's like, I do have a lot of people that flow in and out of my field, but I'm looking at everyone with the like, is this someone I want to be connected with long term, regardless of what the container of the relationship looks like. Like it'll change. And I have a lot of partners where like I'm staying with a partner right now in New York who right now is a completely platonic partner, but we've had sexual and romantic dynamics, but it's just changed. I've known him for 10 years.
Yeah, I think that's like a misconception that people have about polyamory, is that it is all about sex and it is all about kind of having one night stands or whatever. And my experience has been the exact opposite. And to your point, I have partners from the past who are now lifelong friends. Yeah. And most of the people that I align myself with are that way. I just don't imagine doing it any differently. Yeah. And all of the polyamorous people that I meet usually feel that way. Yeah. That they're looking for something deeper and more meaningful and connected than, hey, let's meet in a bar and like, let's go home together and never speak again.
Yeah. And I think, one of the biggest gifts of polyamory is like, it really allows us the option to stay connected with people and have the container or like the basis of the relationship change. With what I see mostly in like straight monogamous people is it's like, we're going to date down to like, and like there are two options for our relationship. We're either going to get married or we're going to break up and never talk again.
Yeah. And then if we break up, I'm supposed to hate you.
Yes. And with polyamory, it's like, we will like love each other throughout whatever state and like whatever we both need. And it's like, it could change and form differently. And yeah, I don't know. I just think that's such especially for someone like me with abandonment issues, like to be able to, and like, I know that's between me and me, but it's been so healing to come into relationship with people, like romantic, intimate, vulnerable relationship, and be like, one, I could never be abandoned by this person because I could never abandon myself. Like I did that already. I had that experience. And I picked myself up and was like, we're not fucking doing this anymore. Like I'll hold myself through it all. But also when we're interacting with partners the way we do as polyamorous people, we really get to build these long-lasting relationships where it's not finite. It's not like, okay, we're working towards marriage or we hate each other. It's like, oh, we get to just be connected as people, and how we connect and how we relate and how we touch each other or look at each other or whatever, all of that can change and we can still be grounded in love through it all.
Yeah, that makes my heart happy because that is for me, the point of all of this. There's like a connection place, and you need to be able to be with yourself and be with other people and respect everything that's involved and be vulnerable still. Like it's such a vulnerable place, polyamory.
It is. It is.
In a beautiful way.
So worth it.
It's so worth it. Every single relationship I've ever had has been in polyamory has been so fulfilling, even outside of sex. Like it's more fulfilling to have these conversations and understand other people in these spaces than it is to like hook up with somebody. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. I agree. Yeah. It's just, I can't believe that it's the unconventional. I'm like, it's wild to me that this isn't how more people are living.
Yeah. And I don't know. I had an interesting conversation over the weekend. My aunt visited, and my entire family knows about my lifestyle. Okay. It's not something I hide. I'm very open about it. If they don't like it, I don't care. Like it's very...
I'm the same.
I want to be myself. I want to be authentic. I talk about a lot of my sex life, my relationship life, my inner thoughts online. Yeah. And that's just like, I literally write out things I would never say out loud maybe to some people. Yeah. And I put them online for millions of people to read. So I just don't care anymore.
I love it. I love it. I'm so here for that.
My aunt was like, so just asking questions about non-monogamy. And she said something that was like, well, what happens if you end up liking one partner more if you have a primary partner? And I'm like, well, like, it ebbs and flows, and it's not that you like one person more, it's that you're kind of just connecting differently. And every relationship is so different. The way that I love my primary partner is not the way that I'm going to love someone that comes out and is like interacting with me in a different way. Yep. And part of polyamory is being able to accept and love yourself and your partners for who they are and who they want to be with. Yeah. And she just like, I saw her face, like, she was like, what is happening? Yeah. And then she made a comment like, oh, I just think that it's really natural for everyone to look at other people and like think that they're attractive, even in a monogamous situation. And she said like, it's natural, but then she was disagreeing with it in a sense. And I'm like, well, it can be both. Like
two truths can exist.
Yes.
Two truths can exist.
And like, don't judge it if you say that out loud. Like if you can understand the feeling. And it's not even just about attraction. Like there's this ability to meet somebody and have a deep conversation with them. And in a monogamous sense, that might not be okay to like go to a certain level in a conversation. Yeah. Like even just talking about like trauma or like the things that really matter to you. Like certain people might be like, why are you talking to that person about that? Mm-hmm. And for me, polyamory is so much outside of even relationships. It's being able to connect deeply with people in that sense.
Yeah, definitely. And I also feel like a lot of times and it's like, my fight is not everyone should be polyamorous.
No.
You know what I mean?
It's not
it's
for
like
everyone.
people think that too. Like, I don't know if you come across that. I feel like a lot of people think that that's like what I'm getting at. And I'm like, no, do whatever you want. But I do find that a lot of monogamous people get very triggered by polyamorous people. And I'm like, that's fine. Like, I get it. We're doing something different that challenges your belief system and that triggers you. And that's fine. But like, I'm more than like, I believe everyone should do what works for them and what feels good for them. And I would love to get to a place where we don't get as much negative feedback or we don't get as much, like, I get so much pushback from people like who are like, they want to challenge me and like, try to convince me out of my relating style or how I love because they're triggered by it. Yeah. And oftentimes people will say like, oh, well, like polyamory, like, isn't that so much work? And I'm like, welcome to relationships. Welcome to life. Like, yes, this shit takes work. Or they'll say things like that, like polyamory allows like too much room or like, it's like, you have to like stay connected to so many people and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, also as a polyamorous person, you don't have to have 15 partners. Like you could have 2. Yeah. You could have 1. You could have 1 and still identify as polyamorous, but still be focusing on like one partner and not have any other people in your field. Yeah. Like it's not like, oh my God, we're having orgies all the time and we have like 17 partners and we have to like take all this time to like see all these different people. It's I don't know. It's interesting how people have such a different idea. And I think a podcast like this, listening to this helps people understand, like, it's not what you think it is. And it could be, some situations might look like that. Like there might be people with 17 partners. Fuck yeah. I'm stoked for them. But like it can look so many different ways. Like we get to choose what our lives look like, and we get to choose how we love and how we connect and how we build a relationship.
And that's like, speaking of like queer love, that is something that like as queer people, when you come out, you get to choose who you love and who your family is sometimes in cases when, you know, people are like disowning their family members. And I think that polyamory offers a different place for queer people too, because it is like a full access to being able to make choices for yourself that you were scared to make one day.
Yeah.
Which is pretty powerful.
Yeah, I know. It's beautiful. I like can't imagine my life looking any different than what it is.
There is one more question I did want to ask you. When you are approaching potential partners, is there a way that you approach these conversations? Like if you're not on a dating app, for example, how do you tell someone in person that you're ethically non-monogamous? Do you just say it? Because I've met people who don't necessarily know how to navigate that conversation, or they feel awkward about it. I'm not at that place because I just like say it now.
Yeah.
But for people watching, like, what would you say is your advice, or how do you navigate it personally?
So obviously on my dating apps, I have it listed in my bio, like everywhere. I'm just like, I present with that right away. And if I meet someone out in the wild, I am a very open book, as you can probably tell. I like to like lay all my shit out on the table pretty quickly. It looks a little different for me right now because I'm single polyamorous. I don't have a primary partner. So it's not necessarily something I need to like say if I like right away, if I feel like a vibe from someone and maybe we're like about to make out or whatever. But if it starts to go down I'm also like, if people take one look at my Instagram, they're like, they know what the vibes are. But like if I'm just meeting someone like totally randomly, maybe we're at like a party and we're starting to connect and talk, it looks a little different for me right now because I don't have a primary partner. So like the need to say that right away isn't as important because there's like no one else that I need to consider right now.
Yeah.
Versus when I did have a primary partner, then as soon as I was feeling a vibe with someone, I would say like, I'm married, but I'm polyamorous, or we're in an open relationship, or we practice ethical non-monogamy. Like as soon as I would start to feel flirtation, I would like quickly slip in the like, I have a husband thing, and then immediately after slip in the like, but we're open. Yeah.
That was kind of my thing as well in that scenario. And now because I have a primary partner, it's something that I say immediately.
Yeah. It's like, as soon as I feel a vibe, I'm just like, ooh. Even if I'm not feeling a vibe, but I'm in like a new space with a bunch of people and I'm like, vibes could be caught here, I'll like kind of just present the information. Now, and again, now that I'm like single polyamorous, if it happens to be that we're meeting in a space where they haven't seen me online or haven't seen my Instagram or my dating app profiles or whatever, I am pretty quick to be like, I'm queer and polyamorous. I'm like, I like, it's probably a little more, I'm probably a little more aggressive with it than I need to be. But I have connected in the past with people who are monogamous and they're like, yeah, like it's fine. And then we're like 2 months into it and it's not really fine.
I've had that experience several times. And it's disheartening. It feels like sad because then you develop
really good people.
I know. But now I have a rule for myself that if someone right away, if someone tells me they're monogamous or they don't know if they could ever do that, which I've had that a lot, like, I don't know if I could ever do this.
Yeah.
I turn it off. I don't
I'm so proud of you.
I don't let myself
go
because
there.
I've been through scenarios where I really deeply feel for someone and then it comes back on me that I'm the bad person because I'm not monogamous and I don't want to be with them in that way.
Yeah. And for me, a challenge has been like, there's been a couple people that I've connected with in the last almost 2 years since leaving my ex-husband, where it's gotten like really, I've presented with like, I'm queer, I'm non-monogamous, this is the lifestyle that I live, I travel a lot, you know, I like live this sort of very liberated, open, sensual, hedonistic life. And they'll you know, they're kind of like, oh, I think I'm kind of more monogamous or I am monogamous. And I'm like, well, whatever, we can just like have fun. And then it's like 2 months in, it's hot and heavy. It's like feeling really good. And then they're like just trying to convince me out of my lifestyle. Yes. Or I start making myself wrong. I'm like, well, maybe I should be open to monogamy. Maybe I, because then I could be with them. And it's like, no, I try really hard to remember to switch into the belief that like I can have it all. Like I can meet fucking amazing people that I want to be with who also relate the same way that I do.
Yeah. I just love that so much. I think we'll end on this note, but in my marriage before, I was told that I would never find someone who loves the way that I do, which is like so open, so free. I don't feel that monogamy is like restricting, but I don't feel like it's authentically me.
Yeah.
And I want to love in that way.
Yeah.
And my primary partner now, we were friends for a long time before we ever romantically got involved.
Okay.
And I knew from the beginning that he wanted open relationships in his past, like just from what he had told me about things. And so I was like, okay, this is like safe. And we both knew each other and we both didn't have this serious relationship in mind.
Yeah.
But it evolved into that. And now we are both polyamorous. We're both open. We like go to parties together, but we have separate relationships. And I found something that is so fulfilling to me that I was told I would never find. And I think everyone deserves that, especially queer polyamorous people.
Yes.
I mean, to be able to be yourself fully is a whole thing. And if and when you decide to be partnered with somebody, even if it's like 2 serious partners or 3 or whatever the case is, I hope that that's something that you experience, like from those other people, that it is not like I'm trying to change you, but I just love you for who you are and how you want to be loved and love.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
So cute.
Oh, I'm so glad you came.